Yeah, man. I think one of the things that you said there that I think is what a lot of people need to learn is, well, really two things. One, you may not get to where you're going by the path you thought you were, so keep going. And then two, like you said, I'm going to be in the UFC 2016. Well, okay, now 17, now 18. It didn't matter. You just kept going after it because you knew you still wanted it, not just letting one setback being like, that's it, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I'm saying? So you kept running into that wall until you ran through it. So I think that's a lot of stuff that people need to learn for themselves and keep pushing themselves. But also, some people ain't made for it. Sometimes that'll tell you if you're not ready for the grind, if you're not ready for the
Yeah.
process, then maybe you should look at other goals.
That is it's a hard way for me too, because I've coached our amateur fight team for years now. We've had
Hmm.
3 very successful years that I've coached. This year we're 11-2 right now. And the two losses were against legit guys.
Hmm.
But just coaching them and motivating them, and giving them kind of what we just talked about, how like you got to have that drive and that determination and motivation. But some people just aren't made to do certain things. I kind of, you can see it sometimes.
Hmm.
I remember when me and Matt Frivola, trained with a bunch of guys starting off, and we weren't like it was weird, because it's weird to think about now, because when we started off, we didn't know like the techniques, or
Hmm.
like knew what like MMA was, or like we had very low fighter IQs.
Hmm.
But when we would spar with each other and spar with other people, we could tell we had something different, and some people
Hmm.
have that, like when I've sparred with you certain times, it's like, whoa, like he's legit, or like he really wants it this day, or that day, or whatever. And we would
Hmm.
go with certain people, and we would kind of call out certain people and be like, oh, he's not really, we would say like, oh, he's not really like a fighter, like he's not a
Hmm.
fighter. And what that means is, it doesn't mean like they're not tough, but it just means like they're not gonna go through it every single day, day in, day out, 6 days a week,
Hmm.
for 10 years straight, every single day, 2 hours a day, recovering at the right time, getting enough sleep, eating the right foods, being able to take those injuries, training with them, cut the weight. There's a lot to that you need. It's a certain type of person that needs to do all those things.
Hmm.
And if you're not that, it doesn't even matter. Like the technique part doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
You could do the technique all day long, but if you go and get drilled, punched in the face, and you want to go home, and you can't come back the next day, because in this sport, man, you just take a beating,
Yeah.
beating after beating after beating after beating, and you know, and some people, you almost don't even want to put them on that path. I see some fighters where I'm like, oh man, I want to be a fighter, but they're only training a couple days a week, and they don't want to come to jujitsu technique because it's
Hmm.
boring. And it's like, well, you're gonna be a white belt then, and who are you gonna beat? Like maybe. And it gets even worse when they get an easy fight, they beat someone
Yep.
with no training. That's the worst fighter to deal with, when he doesn't put the work in, or he or she or whoever, they don't put the work in, and then they go and get an easy fight, and they win it, and next thing you know, they think they're God's green gift to earth or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're not. And
Yeah.
they haven't put the work in, and then they end up, the inevitable happens, they end up fighting someone who is about it, and they take them out.
Make sure that you like and subscribe to catch more starting nowhere.